I'm Andrea Griffin, and I thought I knew everything about falling. Hell, I'd been tumbling through life for 32 years, hitting every wrong note along the way, but nothing prepared me for that spring afternoon in Norfolk when I literally crashed into destiny. The Pride Festival was in full swing, rainbow flags snapping in the harbor breeze. I was supposed to be the headliner, but honestly, I felt like a fraud. My manager Marcus kept pushing this wholesome image while I suffocated behind layers of carefully crafted lies. The crowd was electric, thousands of people celebrating who they truly were, and there I stood on the makeshift stage, singing about love I'd never allowed myself to feel. "Thank you, Norfolk!" I shouted, stepping backward off the stage. That's when it happened. My heel caught the edge of the platform, and I went down like a sack of potatoes straight into the most gorgeous woman I'd ever seen. She had honey blonde hair that caught the sunlight like spun gold, and when our eyes met, those warm brown orbs held such kindness that my heart skipped 3 beats. We were a tangle of limbs on the grass, her nutritionist conference badge pressed against my sequined top. "Damn, I'm so sorry," I gasped, scrambling to help her up. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice like velvet. Her hands were steady as she checked my scraped elbow, professional and gentle. "Just my pride," I laughed, then realized the irony. "I'm Andrea. Emily Washington." Her smile was devastating. "I know who you are." That should have sent up red flags, but something in her tone told me she saw me, not just the performer. Marcus appeared, fussing about insurance and liability, but Emily stood her ground. "Coffee?" she asked quietly. "I know a place." 2 hours later, we were still talking in a corner booth at this tiny cafe near the waterfront. She told me about her work helping people find balance through nutrition, how she believed in healing from the inside out. I found myself sharing things I'd never told anyone, about the music that lived in my chest like caged birds, desperate to fly free. "You have sad eyes," she said suddenly, "even when you smile." Nobody had ever noticed that before. Not Marcus, not the label executives, not the countless people who claimed to know me. But this woman I'd met 3 hours ago could see straight through to my soul. The afternoon sun was setting when she walked me to my car. There was something electric in the air between us, something that made my skin tingle and my breath catch. When she touched my hand to say goodbye, I felt a jolt of recognition, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. "Will I see you again?" I asked, suddenly terrified she might disappear like a beautiful dream. "I'd like that," she whispered. Driving away, I caught her reflection in my rearview mirror, standing there in the golden light. For the first time in years, I felt something stirring in my chest that wasn't just music. It was hope. Raw and terrifying and absolutely beautiful. I had no idea that falling for Emily Washington would change everything, or that the very thing I'd been running from my whole life was exactly what I needed to find. 3 days after our coffee date, I was pacing my hotel suite like a caged animal. Marcus kept droning about image consultants and brand protection, but all I could think about was Emily's laugh, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, how she'd listened to my stories without judgment. "Andrea, are you even listening?" Marcus snapped. "The label wants you squeaky clean. No scandals, no complications." "What if I don't want squeaky clean anymore?" I shot back. His face darkened. "Then you'll lose everything we've built." That evening, I had a show at the Tide, Norfolk's most intimate venue. It was supposed to be acoustic, stripped down, just me and my guitar. But as I walked on stage, scanning the dim room filled with flickering candles, my heart nearly stopped. There she was, Emily, sitting alone at a corner table wearing a simple black dress that made her glow like moonlight. Our eyes locked, and suddenly every song I'd ever written felt like it was meant for this moment. For her. I started with Midnight Confessions, but the words came out different, softer, more vulnerable. The audience disappeared. It was just Emily and me, connected by something invisible and electric. "This next one," I whispered into the microphone, never breaking eye contact with her, "is about falling when you least expect it." I sang about collision and recognition, about walls coming down and hearts opening up. Emily's lips parted slightly. Her fingers wrapped around her wine glass like she was holding on for dear life. When I finished, the applause felt distant, unimportant. After the show, I found her waiting by the stage door. The Norfolk night was warm, filled with the scent of magnolias and possibility. "That was beautiful," she said softly. "It was true," I replied, stepping closer. We walked to her car in comfortable silence, the space between us charged with unspoken words. When she turned to say goodnight, we were standing so close I could feel her breath on my cheek. "Emily," I whispered, my hand reaching up to touch her face. "I know," she breathed. "I feel it too." The kiss happened like gravity, inevitable and earth-shattering. Her lips were soft and warm, tasting like wine and promises. My hands tangled in her golden hair as she pressed against me, both of us trembling with the force of finally giving in. It was gentle and desperate all at once, like we were drowning and saving each other simultaneously. When we broke apart, her brown eyes were wide with wonder and fear. "What are we doing?" she whispered. "I don't know," I admitted, resting my forehead against hers. "But it feels right." She smiled, that devastating smile that made my knees weak. "It terrifies me how right it feels." The next morning, my phone exploded with messages from Marcus. Someone had taken photos of us outside the venue, nothing scandalous, just two women talking, but he was panicking anyway. I deleted every message without reading them fully. For the first time in my life, I didn't care about the consequences. Emily had awakened something in me that had been sleeping for 32 years, and I wasn't about to let fear put it back to sleep. I called her instead. "Good morning, beautiful," I said when she answered. Her laugh was like sunshine. "Good morning yourself. Are you ready for this?" "Ready for what?" "Whatever comes next," she said simply. Looking out at the Norfolk harbor, watching the boats sway gently in the morning light, I realized I was ready for anything as long as Emily was beside me. The old Andrea would have run, would have chosen safety over truth. But love had made me brave, and there was no going back now. 2 weeks later, Emily invited me to her apartment, a cozy place overlooking the Chesapeake Bay. I arrived with a bottle of wine and nerves jangling like broken guitar strings. She answered the door in jeans and a cream sweater, looking more beautiful than any woman had a right to. "I thought I'd cook for you," she said, leading me into her kitchen. "Real food, not hotel room service." The apartment was pure Emily, warm earth tones and plants everywhere, books stacked on every surface. Photos of her travels dotted the walls, but no family pictures. I noticed that immediately. "No parents in sight," I observed, running my finger along her bookshelf. "Yours either, I'm guessing," she replied, not looking up from the stove. "Some of us create our own families." The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air as we talked about everything and nothing. She moved around her kitchen like a dancer, confident and graceful. When she handed me a glass of wine, our fingers brushed, and that same electric current shot through me. "Andrea," she said softly, stepping closer, "I need you to know something." "What?" "I've never felt this way about anyone before. It scares the hell out of me." I set down my wine and cupped her face in my hands. "Emily, I've spent my whole life pretending to be someone I'm not. With you, I don't have to pretend anymore." The kiss was different this time, deeper, full of promises and possibilities. Her hands fisted in my hair as I backed her against the kitchen counter, our bodies fitting together like puzzle pieces. The timer on the oven was beeping, but neither of us cared about dinner anymore. "Bedroom," she whispered against my lips. Her room was bathed in soft lamplight, the bed covered in white linens that smelled like lavender. We moved slowly, savoring every touch, every whispered confession. When her sweater hit the floor, followed by my blouse, I marveled at how natural it felt, how right. Her skin was silk under my fingers, and when she sighed my name, it sounded like music. We explored each other with reverent hands and gentle mouths, learning the language of desire we'd both been too afraid to speak. The world outside ceased to exist as we discovered what it meant to be truly seen, truly wanted, truly loved. Afterward, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. The Norfolk night was quiet except for the distant sound of water against the shore. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice small in the darkness. I tightened my arms around her. I don't know. But I know I don't want to go back to pretending. She lifted her head to look at me, her brown eyes serious. Marcus called you today, didn't he? 3 times. I didn't answer. And your label? I sighed. They want me in Nashville next week. New album discussions, image meetings, the usual circus. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Maybe that's good. Maybe we both need to think about what this means. But as I held her close, feeling her heartbeat against mine, I already knew what it meant. It meant everything. It meant the end of living half a life and the beginning of something real and terrifying and beautiful. The next morning, I woke to find Emily already dressed, sitting by the window with her coffee. Something in her posture told me the spell was breaking. You're having second thoughts, I said, pulling on my shirt from the night before. I'm having realistic thoughts, she corrected. You're Andrea Griffin. You have a career, obligations, a whole world that doesn't include people like me. People like you? Emily, you're everything I've been looking for without knowing I was searching. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself. And what about tomorrow, next week? When the cameras start following us and your career implodes? I wanted to argue, to promise her everything would be fine, but the truth was I didn't know. All I knew was that walking away from her felt like tearing my own heart out. But maybe she was right. Maybe we were both fooling ourselves, thinking love could conquer a world that wasn't ready for us. As I drove back to my hotel, Emily's taste still on my lips, I realized I was facing the hardest choice of my life. Keep playing it safe and lose the only real thing I'd ever found, or risk everything for love. The Nashville meeting was supposed to be routine. I sat in that sterile conference room, listening to executives discuss my brand evolution, while staring at my phone. Emily's last text burned into my memory. Take care of yourself, Andrea. Then Marcus dropped the bombshell. Photos. Us outside the Tide, walking to her car, the kiss by the stage door. Not explicit, but unmistakably intimate. My stomach dropped as glossy prints scattered across the mahogany table like accusations. Damage control, Marcus said coldly. We deny everything, say she's a friend, a fan, whatever. But this ends now. What if I don't want it to end? The words slipped out before I could stop them. The room went silent. Label President Richard Stone leaned forward, his steel gray eyes boring into mine. Then you can kiss your career goodbye, he said. Country music fans aren't ready for this, Andrea. You know that. I thought about Emily's smile, her laugh, the way she made me feel like I could breathe for the first time in years. Then I looked around that room full of suits who saw me as nothing more than a profit margin. Maybe it's time they were ready, I said quietly. Marcus exploded. Are you insane? We've invested millions in your image. You have obligations, contracts. I have a life too, I shot back, standing, and I'm tired of hiding it. The next 3 days were hell. My phone rang non-stop with damage control meetings, crisis management sessions, threats of lawsuits if I violated my morality clause. I ignored them all and flew back to Norfolk, desperate to see Emily, to tell her I'd chosen her over everything else. But when I reached her apartment, her neighbor told me she'd gone to stay with friends. Her office said she was taking personal time. My calls went straight to voicemail. Finally, I found her at a small cafe near the waterfront, looking exhausted and heartbroken. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. Where else would I be? I sat across from her, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. Andrea, I lost 3 clients today. Conservative families who saw the photos online. My business is hemorrhaging because of me. Because of us, I corrected. And we'll figure it out. She laughed bitterly. Will we? Because I spent the last 3 days having reporters call my office, asking about my sexuality, my past relationships. They dug up my college photos, Andrea. They're treating me like I corrupted you. My heart shattered seeing her pain. This was exactly what she'd feared, what I'd sworn wouldn't happen. I'll fix this, I promised. I'll go public, tell them it was my choice, my feelings. And destroy everything you've worked for? Emily shook her head. I won't be responsible for that. You're not responsible. I am. I'm the one who kissed you first, who pushed for more when you tried to be reasonable. Stop, she said sharply. Don't you dare make this about blame. What we had was beautiful, but it was also impossible. We both knew that. The past tense hit me like a physical blow. Had, Emily, please. She stood, wrapping her jacket around herself like armor. I need space, Andrea. We both do. Maybe when things calm down, when the attention dies away. That could take months. Years. Then that's what it takes, she said, her voice breaking. Because I can't watch you sacrifice everything for me, and I can't keep pretending this won't destroy us both. She walked away before I could respond, leaving me sitting alone in that cafe while my world crumbled around me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd finally found the courage to be authentic, to choose love over lies, and it was tearing apart the one thing that had made me whole. That night, I called Marcus. I'll do whatever you want, I said. Deny everything, play the victim, go back to being your perfect little country princess. Just make it stop. The relief in his voice was audible. Smart choice, Andrea. We'll have you back on track in no time. But as I hung up, staring out at Norfolk's harbor lights, I knew I was lying to myself again. You can't unknow love, can't unfeel the way someone's touch changes your entire world. Emily was gone. My career was hanging by a thread, and I was right back where I started, pretending to be someone I wasn't. The only difference was now I knew exactly what I was giving up. 6 months of radio silence. 6 months of pretending Emily Washington was just a distant memory. Another mistake I'd corrected. Marcus had orchestrated my comeback brilliantly, complete with a fabricated romance with some Nashville pretty boy that made the tabloids swoon. I played my part perfectly, smiling for cameras while dying inside. Then the lawyer called. Miss Griffin? I'm calling about Evelyn Morrison, your great aunt. She's passed, and you're the sole beneficiary of her estate in Norfolk. I nearly dropped the phone. Great aunt? I don't have any family. According to her will, she's your mother's aunt. The estate includes a Victorian mansion on Mowbray Arch and considerable assets. You'll need to come to Norfolk to handle the arrangements. Norfolk. Where Emily lived, worked, breathed. Where I'd tasted heaven and lost it all. The Morrison house was a Gothic masterpiece. All turrets and bay windows, surrounded by overgrown gardens that had seen better decades. The lawyer, a nervous man named Phillips, handed me ornate keys that looked older than Virginia itself. Miss Morrison was quite reclusive, he explained as we walked through rooms draped in white sheets. Lived alone for 60 years, never married. She specifically requested you inherit, though she never explained why. The place felt alive with secrets. Portrait eyes followed me down hallways lined with faded wallpaper. In the study, I found stacks of letters tied with ribbon, photographs of women in vintage clothing, their arms around each other in ways that suggested more than friendship. There's something else, Philip said nervously. People have been asking about the property. Investors, historians, treasure hunters. Miss Morrison apparently had quite a collection of valuable items. They've been rather persistent. What kind of persistent? Phone calls, visits, some veiled threats about family claims to the estate. I'd suggest changing the locks immediately. That night, alone in the mansion's master bedroom, I called Emily before I could lose my nerve. Andrea? Her voice was cautious, surprised. I'm in Norfolk. I inherited my great-aunt's house. Emily, I need help. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Then, quietly, what kind of help? Strange people are claiming they have rights to this place. The lawyer seems spooked. I know I have no right to ask, but I don't know anyone else here. Another pause. Text me the address. I'll be there in an hour. When she arrived, my heart nearly stopped. She looked thinner, her golden hair shorter, but still devastatingly beautiful. We stood in the doorway like strangers, the weight of everything unsaid between us. Nice place, she said finally, stepping inside. Very haunted mansion chic. I laughed despite everything. Wait until you see the portrait gallery. I'm pretty sure they're all judging my life choices. We walked through the house together, and slowly, the ice between us began to thaw. Emily examined the old photographs with professional curiosity. These women, she said softly, studying a picture of two ladies in 1920s dress. They look happy together. Maybe they were just friends, I said automatically, then caught myself. Or maybe not. Emily's eyes met mine. Maybe not. That's when we heard it. Footsteps on the front porch, then the sound of someone testing the door handle. We froze, listening to whispers outside, multiple voices discussing entry points. Back door, Emily whispered, grabbing my hand. We crept through the kitchen, as glass shattered somewhere in the front of the house. My phone had no signal, and the old landline was dead. Emily pulled me toward a narrow servant staircase I hadn't noticed before. Who are these people? I hissed as we climbed. I don't know, but they're not here for a friendly visit. The third floor had a hidden door behind a bookshelf, revealing a small room filled with trunks and boxes. Emily pulled me inside, closing the door just as heavy footsteps echoed below. In the darkness, pressed against each other in that tiny space, I could feel Emily trembling. Without thinking, I wrapped my arms around her, and for the first time in months, the world felt right again. I'm sorry, I whispered against her hair. For everything. For not fighting harder. For letting them scare me away from you. Andrea, she breathed. And when she looked up, her brown eyes were filled with tears and something that looked like hope. The voices below grew louder, more frustrated. Whatever they were looking for, they couldn't find it. But sitting there in the dark, holding Emily again, I realized I'd already found the only treasure that mattered. We stayed hidden until dawn, whispering in the dark like conspirators. When silence finally settled over the house, Emily and I emerged to find the place ransacked. Drawers pulled out, paintings moved, floorboards pried up. They'd been thorough but careful not to destroy anything valuable. What were they looking for? Emily asked, surveying the chaos. That's when I noticed it. One of the old letters had fallen from its ribbon, revealing elegant handwriting on aged paper. I picked it up and read aloud. My dearest Margaret, I've hidden our most precious memories where only someone who understands true love will find them. Emily's eyes widened. Your great-aunt had a lover. For 60 years, apparently. I gathered more letters, pieces of a hidden history. Look at these dates, they span decades. The correspondence painted a picture of two women deeply in love, but forced to hide their relationship. Evelyn Morrison and Margaret Chen had met in the 1960s, when such love was not just taboo but dangerous. They'd lived together in this house as spinster friends, protecting each other and their secret. This is beautiful, Emily whispered, reading over my shoulder. They found a way to make it work. At what cost? I wondered aloud. Hiding for 60 years, pretending to be something they weren't? Emily looked at me pointedly. Sounds familiar. We spent the morning piecing together clues from the letters. References to the safe room behind Margaret's portrait and our sanctuary above the stars led us to a hidden panel in the attic. Inside, we found a treasure trove that explained everything. Rare first edition books, signed photographs from famous actresses and musicians, jewelry that belonged to Hollywood legends. But most shocking were the documents. Love letters between famous women, private photographs, evidence of relationships that had been carefully concealed from history. This is worth millions, Emily breathed, holding a letter signed by a legendary actress to her secret lover. Your great-aunt was collecting proof that we've always existed, always loved. And now people want to profit from it, or bury it, I realized. That's why they're so desperate. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We know you found them. We'll pay handsomely, or take them by force. Your choice. Emily grabbed my hand. We need to get out of here. But as we packed the most valuable documents, I heard a familiar voice downstairs. Marcus. My blood ran cold as his words drifted up. She's here somewhere. Find her, and find those papers. Marcus is involved? Emily whispered. Through the window, I saw 3 cars parked outside. This wasn't just about money anymore. Marcus had betrayed me completely, using my inheritance to destroy any evidence that might encourage me to come out again. "The servants' stairs," I whispered, leading Emily toward our escape route. But Marcus was waiting at the bottom, his smile cold and calculating. "Hello, Andrea, Miss Washington. Going somewhere?" "You bastard," I spat. "This is about silencing me, isn't it?" "This is about protecting your career," he replied smoothly. "Those documents prove that deviant behavior has infected entertainment for decades. Imagine the scandal if they became public." Emily stepped protectively in front of me. "You mean imagine if people realized love has always existed in all forms?" Marcus laughed. "Love? This is about money and reputation. Andrea's worth millions if she stays on brand. But if she follows your example and destroys herself for some misguided romance?" "Shut up," I snarled, but he continued. "Oh yes, Miss Washington. I know about your little business problems, your lost clients. Imagine what happens when this gets out. The freak who corrupted America's sweetheart." That's when Emily kissed me. Right there in front of Marcus and his thugs, she grabbed my face and kissed me with everything she had. It was defiant and desperate and absolutely perfect, a declaration that we refused to be ashamed anymore. When we broke apart, her brown eyes were blazing with determination. "I love her," she announced, "and she loves me, and there's nothing deviant or wrong about that." Marcus sighed dramatically. "How touching. Also completely irrelevant. Hand over the documents." "No," I said simply. "These belong to history, to people who need to know they're not alone." "Then you've made your choice," Marcus said, nodding to his associates. But Emily was already moving, grabbing a heavy candlestick from the mantel. "Run, Andrea!" As chaos erupted around us, I realized something profound. My great-aunt and Margaret had hidden their love to survive, but Emily and I were done hiding. Whatever came next, we'd face it together, openly and without shame. The only question was whether we'd live long enough to see tomorrow. Emily's swing with the candlestick bought us precious seconds. We bolted through the kitchen as Marcus shouted orders behind us. The back door led to overgrown gardens that offered perfect cover, but I knew we couldn't run forever. "The carriage house," I gasped, pointing to a smaller building hidden behind ancient oaks. Great-aunt's letters mentioned it. We reached the structure as our pursuers crashed through the back door. The carriage house was locked, but Emily found a loose board and we squeezed through. Inside, covered by dusty tarps, sat a pristine 1960 Mustang, and something even more incredible. "Holy shit," Emily breathed. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, each drawer meticulously labeled with dates and names. This wasn't just a collection, it was an archive. Decades of evidence that love between women had shaped art, politics, literature, and music throughout American history. She was a historian, I realized, opening a drawer marked Political Figures, 1940 to 1980. She documented everything they tried to erase. Emily pulled out a folder containing photographs and letters between 2 Supreme Court justices from the 1970s. This could change everything. Rewrite history books. "Which is exactly why Marcus wants it destroyed," I said grimly. We heard voices getting closer. Through a grimy window, I saw Marcus directing his men to search every outbuilding. We had minutes at most. "There," Emily pointed to a heavy safe in the corner. "If we can crack that open." The safe was old but solid. Emily tried various combinations while I kept watch. Birth dates, anniversaries, anything that might matter to Evelyn Morrison. Nothing worked. "Wait," I said suddenly, remembering something from the letters. "True love." She kept saying only someone who understands true love would find it. Emily's eyes lit up. She tried various dates, then stopped. "When did you first kiss me?" "The exact date?" My heart pounded as I told her. She entered the numbers, and the safe clicked open. Inside were the crown jewels of the collection, original manuscripts, private photographs, and a leather journal bound with a red ribbon. "Read it," Emily urged. The journal's first entry was dated 60 years ago. Today I met Margaret, and my life began. If anyone finds this, know that love is love, and it deserves to be celebrated, not hidden. Footsteps crunched on gravel outside. Emily grabbed the journal and most precious documents, while I pocketed what I could. But we were trapped. The carriage house had only one exit, and Marcus's men were surrounding it. "Give me those papers, Andrea," Marcus called from outside. "No one needs to get hurt." "Except everyone who comes after us," Emily muttered. "Everyone who needs to know they're not alone." I looked at her, this incredible woman who'd risked everything just to stand beside me, and made a decision that terrified and exhilarated me. "Marcus," I called back, "I have a counter offer." "I'm listening." "These documents go to the Smithsonian, to the Library of Congress, to places where they belong. In exchange, I'll give you the biggest story of your career." "What story?" I took Emily's hand, squeezing tight. "The story of Andrea Griffin coming out. Publicly, proudly, completely." Emily's eyes widened. "Andrea, your career will survive or it won't," I said. "But I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending love is something to be ashamed of." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Then you're bluffing. You'd never sacrifice everything you've built." "Try me," I called back. "Emily, remember that interview you mentioned? The one where celebrities talk about authenticity?" She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her brown eyes. "Call them," I said loudly enough for Marcus to hear. "Tell them Andrea Griffin has something important to say about love, truth, and the courage to be real." "You're insane," Marcus shouted. "Maybe," I admitted, "but I'd rather be insane and honest than sane and suffocating." Emily was already dialing, her voice carrying clearly as she spoke to producers, arranged satellite feeds, scheduled the interview that would change everything. Marcus realized his leverage was evaporating. He couldn't threaten my career if I was willingly putting it on the line. "This is career suicide," he tried one last time. "No," I said, kissing Emily's temple as she finished the call. "This is career resurrection. The difference is I'll finally be playing myself instead of some character you created." The silence outside stretched long enough that we wondered if they'd retreated. Then Emily's phone rang. The interview was confirmed for tomorrow, live television, national audience. By this time tomorrow, everyone would know exactly who Andrea Griffin really was. And for the first time in my life, that didn't terrify me. It thrilled me. Marcus's retreat was tactical, not permanent. We stayed in the carriage house until dark, then snuck back to Emily's apartment through Norfolk's winding streets. She lived simply now, having downsized after losing those clients, but her place felt like a sanctuary compared to the mansion's chaos. "Are you sure about tomorrow?" she asked as we sat on her couch, the precious documents spread between us like evidence of love's resilience. "Terrified and sure," I admitted. "It's time, Emily. Past time." She curled against my side, and I marveled at how perfectly she fit there. "What if they destroy you for it?" "Then they destroy someone who's finally telling the truth," I said, stroking her hair. "Better that than dying slowly as someone I'm not." We spent hours going through Evelyn's collection, reading love letters that spanned decades. These women had risked everything for love, lived in shadows but never gave up on each other. Their courage humbled me. "Look at this," Emily said, holding up a photograph of two women at a 1970s music festival, arms around each other, radiant with joy. "They look so happy." "Like us," I said softly. She turned in my arms, her brown eyes serious. "Andrea, I need you to know something. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever the cost, I'm proud of us. I'm proud of you." The kiss that followed was different from all the others, deeper, more certain, filled with the knowledge that we were crossing a line together and never looking back. When she led me to her bedroom, it wasn't just desire driving us but something more profound. We were claiming each other, choosing love over fear in the most fundamental way possible. Her skin was soft under my hands as we undressed slowly, savoring every moment. When she whispered my name like a prayer, I felt something shift inside me. A wall finally crumbling completely. We moved together with desperate tenderness, two women who'd found home in each other's arms. The world outside could rage and threaten, but in that bed, we were untouchable, complete, exactly where we belonged. Afterward, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, both of us quiet with the magnitude of what tomorrow would bring. "I love you," I said into the darkness. "Whatever happens, I need you to know that." "I love you too," she whispered back, more than I thought possible. The morning came too quickly. Emily made coffee with shaking hands while I reviewed my notes for the interview. Marcus had called 17 times. The label executives were in full panic mode, but there was no going back now. "Ready?" Emily asked as we drove to the television studio. "With you? I can handle anything." The interview was scheduled for the midday slot, maximum viewership. As we sat in the green tent, Emily holding my hand, I watched the monitor showing promos for my appearance. Country star Andrea Griffin opens up about love and authenticity. They had no idea what was coming. The host, a veteran journalist named Sarah Chen, briefed me moments before we went live. "We'll start with your new music, then transition to personal growth. Just be yourself." "That's exactly what I plan to do," I said. When the cameras rolled, I felt strangely calm. Emily was visible just off stage, her smile giving me strength. Sarah asked about my hiatus, my return to music, the evolution of my sound. Standard questions that I answered honestly but carefully. Then she leaned forward. "Andrea, you've been very private about your personal life. Can you tell us about love? What does it mean to you now?" This was it. The moment everything changed. "Love," I said, looking directly into the camera, "is finding someone who sees your authentic self and celebrates it. Love is courage. Love is Emily Washington." Sarah's eyes widened. "Emily is?" "The woman I love," I said simply. "The woman who taught me that hiding who you are isn't protection, it's prison. I'm gay, Sarah. I'm in love with an incredible woman, and I'm done pretending otherwise." The studio went dead silent. I could see production assistants scrambling, but the cameras kept rolling. Emily was crying, her hands pressed to her mouth, but her smile was radiant. "How long have you known?" Sarah asked, professional even in shock. "Probably my whole life," I admitted. "But I've been in love with Emily for 8 months now. She makes me brave." The interview continued for another 10 minutes, but those words had already changed everything. By the time we left the studio, my phone was exploding with calls, messages, reactions. Some vicious, some supportive, all intense. "No regrets?" Emily asked as we drove away from the chaos. I pulled over, cupped her face in my hands, and kissed her thoroughly. Only that it took me so long. That night, as we watched the interview clip go viral, as my career hung in uncertain balance, Emily and I held each other in her bed and knew we'd won the only victory that mattered. We'd chosen love over fear, truth over comfort, each other over everything else. Tomorrow would bring consequences, but tonight, we were free. 6 months later, I stood on the stage of Norfolk's waterfront amphitheater, looking out at 5,000 faces illuminated by autumn moonlight. The benefit concert for LGBTQ youth services had sold out in 3 hours, something that would have been impossible before my coming out interview changed everything. "This next song," I said into the microphone, "is about finding home in the most unexpected places." Emily sat in the front row, wearing the blue dress I loved, her golden hair catching the stage lights. She was radiant, successful again after her nutrition practice had exploded with new clients who specifically sought her out after our story went public. Turns out authenticity was good for business after all. The song was new, written in the mansion's music room during the countless evenings we'd spent there, cataloging Evelyn's collection and preparing it for donation to the Smithsonian. The lyrics spoke of collision and recognition, of walls crumbling and hearts opening, of love that refuses to hide. As I sang, I saw faces in the crowd that told stories of their own. Young couples holding hands openly for the first time, Parents who'd driven hours to show support for their children, teenagers who finally saw themselves reflected in mainstream music. This was what Evelyn Morrison had dreamed of, what her 60 years of hidden documentation had been building toward. Marcus was gone, of course. The label had dropped me initially, but 3 other companies had swooped in with better offers, eager to represent the artist brave enough to live her truth. My new album, Unguarded, had debuted at #1 on both country and pop charts. Turns out people were hungry for genuine emotion, even if it challenged their preconceptions. The concert ended with thunderous applause, but I barely heard it. All I could see was Emily, standing and clapping, her brown eyes shining with pride and love. When I left the stage, she was waiting in the wings. "That was incredible," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me. "We did it," I said, holding her close. "We actually did it." Later, we walked through the mansion's restored gardens, now open to the public as the Morrison Chen Memorial Garden, honoring both Evelyn and Margaret's legacy. The Victorian house had become a museum and research center, its hidden archives finally serving their intended purpose. "Remember when you thought this was impossible?" Emily asked, squeezing my hand as we passed the fountain where Margaret had proposed to Evelyn in 1963. "Which part? The career surviving, the house becoming a sanctuary, or you falling in love with a disaster like me?" She laughed, that beautiful sound that still made my heart skip. "All of it, but especially the last part." We stopped beside the old oak tree where we'd hidden that first night, when everything seemed hopeless and dangerous. Now it was decorated with fairy lights, a symbol of transformation rather than fear. "Emily," I said, suddenly nervous despite everything we'd been through together. "What?" I pulled the small velvet box from my jacket pocket, dropping to one knee right there under the Norfolk stars. "I know we've already faced down angry managers, corporate executives, and treasure hunters, but would you be willing to take on one more challenge?" Her hands flew to her mouth, tears already starting. "Andrea, will you marry me?" I asked, opening the box to reveal the ring I'd had custom made, set with stones that matched her beautiful brown eyes. "Will you build a life with me that's completely, authentically ours?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, of course yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood to kiss her as the autumn leaves danced around us like confetti. When we broke apart, she was laughing and crying simultaneously. "I can't believe you proposed in the same spot where we hid from criminals," she said. Seemed fitting, I grinned. From hiding to celebrating, right here where it all began. As we walked back toward the house, now truly our home, I thought about Evelyn's journal entry that had started everything. Love is love, and it deserves to be celebrated, not hidden. She and Margaret had planted seeds in secret, but Emily and I were living in the garden those seeds had grown into. My phone buzzed with congratulations from friends who'd somehow already heard the news. Emily's nutritionist colleagues were planning an engagement party. My new label wanted to discuss a wedding album. The world that had once seemed so hostile was embracing us with open arms. But the best part was the simple truth that had taken me 32 years to discover. When you finally stop pretending to be someone else, when you choose love over fear and authenticity over approval, life doesn't just get better, it becomes extraordinary. Emily pulled me close for another kiss under the porch lights of our Victorian sanctuary, and I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together, openly and joyfully, exactly as we were meant to be.